Hey, Soul Sister. In today's episode, we are diving deep into a topic that so many of us have lived, breathed, and burned out from: hustle culture. You know, the one glorifying the grind, wearing busy like a badge of honor, and chasing success at the cost of our well being. We're unpacking how this culture has fed us the narrative that working harder and longer equals worth and value. But truthfully, it's left so many of us anxious, disconnected, and running on empty. Burnout isn't a badge, it's a warning. We're talking about why rest is revolutionary, how perceptions around productivity are shifting, and why the old hustle hard model doesn't serve the season we're stepping into. If you've ever questioned the glorification of the grind, felt the pressure to keep going even when your soul whispered, slow down, or needed permission to choose rest, this conversation is for you. So let's rewrite the narrative together.
That was a good intro. I mean, I feel like a lot of our lives have been built on hustle culture and that belief of working the grind, like you said, and
Mm.
glorifying the
Mhm.
word busy, right? And I thought it was always like busy meant good for me. Like I
Yeah.
was
Like you're important.
important. Do you
Yeah,
know what I
so
mean? Like,
good. That's such
what
a
did that
good.
mean for
I
you?
love that. Let's unpack that a little bit. Equating to a feeling of importance, because I think we all want to feel important. And I feel like this narrative that we've been fed most of our lives, you know, that hustle and grinding and working hard to be successful or to climb the ladder or, you know, to get results. You know, as humans, it's natural for us to want to feel important, to want to feel good, to feel valued. And I think that so for so long, it's been such a like orchestrated lie to feed into that need, that human need that we all desire, and that feeling of importance. So I love that you said that, Cher, because I think it's a good one, right? It's like how many of us feel like we get that feeling of importance from hustling hard and being busy and all the things, right?
Yeah. And it's not just hustling hard. I mean, I feel like it's not just importance. It's also like seeing that we're actually being productive and we're actually doing something of worth and value that, whatever we're doing matters because we're busy. And so sometimes we think equate busy as being more productive when in fact, I think it's the opposite. And I think I'm learning that more and more with like how the older I'm getting, the more I'm seeing like the amount of time that I wasted saying I was busy, wasting my life on, what I thought was productive when I could have been, really resting for creativity and being more productive in a short amount of time. And I think that's what we're talking about today is like the glorification of hustle culture has like kind of like made us all like conditioned all of us into believing that this is how you're only going to be successful is if you hustle and you wake up at the 5 a.m. grind and you do the things and you show up and you work hard and
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
hard work comes success. That's the messaging we've always gotten, and especially on social media. When we look on social media and we see people, I don't know about you, but if you're seeing the messages across the board changing, there's a reason for that, right? There's a collective which is now saying, you know what, I'm done hustling. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm burnt out. And we're changing the message from I need to make this much money, blah, blah, blah. Look how much money I got. Look how successful I am. I got $1 million, da, 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 to let's create a work-life balance. This is
Yeah.
true success. Things that matter, the things that you're passionate about. How are you giving your time to
Mm.
yourself first? And we have been doing that along this journey. And I think this is where we've come to the realization, you and I, that the soul sister journey feels like that. It feels like a movement of passion.
It
It feels like
really,
a
really
flow,
does. Yeah, I love
from
it
hustle
too
to
because I feel
flow.
like for once
Yeah.
in my life and like for once in both of our lives, we're building something in that flow like energy versus that hustle grinding. And it's been like a journey too for us because it's like there have been times in my own like personal journey where I would start to give myself permission to kind of go with the seasons of like knowing when it's a season of action and also knowing when it's a season of rest. But in the back of my mind, it was always constant on that like autopilot of like still grinding, right? Still grinding, still going. But I think for you and I, when it comes to building Soul Sisters with the podcast and the retreats, we really have stepped into this space of like allowing ourselves to rest, allowing ourselves to flow. And the beautiful thing about this type of energy and this type of being, because it really is, it's like it's a way of being, that when you truly do allow yourself to surrender and you stop pushing and you stop grinding and you stop like just going as if you're a machine, and you start to trust and surrender more, that you actually begin to let go of any resistance for like miracles for the universe to come in and like co-create with you, you know? And I feel like for you and I, we've had so many experiences through this journey already that have proven that over and over again. It was like there's been times where you've been tired and you're like, I just need a rest. Like, I know we were going to do this, but I need today to rest, and vice versa. Same with me. And I also feel like there's been times when I would feel as though that like little gremlin in the back of my mind saying, no, you got to show up. You've got to show up. You got to do this. You can't just sit around and do nothing because nothing's going to get done. Right. Those are the lies though. Right. And I remember like there's been times too, Cher, when you're like, girl, like if you're not feeling it today, that's okay. Because it's going to be way more important with the intention that goes behind whatever it is that you do. Right. And I think it's so true is like whatever we're doing,
Mm.
it's like the intention that goes into it. So if you're not feeling it, like that energy is going to be associated to that action that you're putting in, right? So there have been days where we're like, all right, we're going to rest.
Yeah.
Maybe we rest the whole week, whatever. And then things would come in for us. And then the next week, our batteries charge, right? And then we would go full in, feeling good and good energy, and things just flow. And it feels like what you and I have been building has been very much in that flow, rest, go with the cycles kind of state. And it's still very new because we still do live in a predominantly culture, hustle type of culture, we'll say. I'm really curious for you, Cher, because you've been a business owner most of your life, right? You've never really had to work in corporate settings. So corporate settings, workspace is different than being your own boss and being in a business like. So I would love to know like what has your take on hustle culture when it comes to building and operating a business from that perspective?
You know what? I have worked in environments where it's like corporate or whatever, but not in a sense where I would have to be, I felt like I still had some individuality in those positions. So I needed to be my own boss. And that's just for me. I think some people can't like prefer to work for other people, and that's okay. I'm just a person who knows I can't work for anyone. And so I think the hustle culture can be different for somebody who works in a corporate field and somebody who has their own job, right? That can be more flexible with their hours and stuff like that, which we'll talk about too, like how we think flexibility in the workplace should be. But for me as a business owner, I think it's important to note that I was not always this way. And I think because of my old, the stories that I've always been told as a child, that I need to prove myself. I need to be somebody. I need to be the best. I need to work hard. I need to be important. I need to be busy to be important, to be worthy, to be valued, to be respected, to be successful, to make money. Right. And those things kind of like you look at it like, if you don't do this, you're not going to get this. If you don't do this, you're not going to be you're not going to be successful. You're not going to make money if you don't work hard, all those things. And what I realized was those things were making me lose myself in the process. And I was only trying to prove to others who I was. But in the process, I didn't even know who I was. And so if you lose yourself in that process of the hustle, people start to view you as, that person, identify as that person who is busy all the time, and you're successful and you have it all and you work hard, and they praise you for it. They give you the praise, right? And that's all well and great when they give you the praise, but that doesn't really fuel you in the end. And I think that's where we cut like all the awards and the accolades and the things that I've gotten, like I can put them on a shelf right now and show you. I've gotten so many and I felt great in the process. But now looking back, I'm like, why am I glorifying myself over those things that I got, that praise that I got? Who was I during that process? I was doing it only for those things. I was doing it only to be praised. And so now I feel like I can still be successful in the things that I want to do, but it's through the intention of service. It's through the intention of my purpose, and in life we have a purpose, and it's not to be praised and loved by everybody. It should be to create an impact and serve others. That's what it is. When you live a life as a human being, your life is not just about you, it is about the people around you as well. And so if I make it all about me, what is the point, right? And so I think you get lost in that like hustle culture, and then you start to say, well, who are my real friends? Who are the people that surround me, and do they actually know me? Because I guarantee you half those people that praised me or gave me those awards don't really know me, right? And so you again lose yourself in the process of that identity. And the hustle culture is such a culture that we talk about being glorified because society has been conditioned to believe that it is that way, that it should be that way, right? And so I think the narrative is starting to change for me and for you, but for so many, where it's like, you know what? I am more productive in my life right now by resting. It's crazy. Like if I sit with you for an hour and we work on Soul Sisters, or we work on a podcast, or we work on, it's things that we want to work on, but we're not having to push. Not we're still getting so much more done than we
Yeah.
would get done in an 8-hour day because we're flowing, because we're listening, because we're, like I
Yeah,
said,
yeah,
hustle to
yeah.
flow, right? And even if I'm sitting in an office for 8 hours, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be productive, right? So you look at countries like, I think I told you before, the happiest place on earth is Denmark. Okay. So let's talk about Denmark for a second and what they have in place for work-life balance, and why the Netherlands is the happiest place, right? So let's say they work average 30 to 35 hours a week, and many work only 4 days a week, right? Their part-time is normal. Many people work part-time. Many people choose to work part-time, but they have a value that work is not a badge of honor. It means, and it's a means to a good life, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's like a badge of honor and they have to prove themselves to be busy and successful. They don't think that way, right? So their life is very much about family time and leisure and adventure and personal enjoyment. That is all priority for them, right? But in these countries, like I say, like these countries like North America, we put so much emphasis on the corporate world, the hustle mentality, the successful, like multi-million dollar businesses. And then we forget to prioritize those personal enjoyments, those family times, those leisure moments, right? And I know for so many years, my dad did that growing up. He would always be working since I was born. And from the time he died, he was working. He said that he would die if he didn't work. That's basically his words. And I think that for him, that was how he viewed work life balance is his work. That's all it was to him. And so for me, I operated that way while he was alive for so long. And then I realized, you know what? There's more to life than work. After he passed away, I realized that. And it could be due to that, or it could be just due to feeling the shift of life happening and having to, listen to my own intuition now as I'm getting older. But I'm glad I'm realizing it now than staying in that hustle culture and having things like pass me by, having life pass me by and not really like enjoying it and doing it for all the wrong reasons, like to be busy, to be important, to prove myself to everybody and to be famous, And that's all my life was, to be validated and to be famous. So, Whitley, I know that you're a hard worker from the time I met you. You have been go-getter. Like, how has your childhood shaped the way you looked at hustle culture?
Yeah, I think for me as a child who was one of four kids in a family, I think it was like a lot of, fighting to be seen and to be heard, and not even just in the home, but also outside the home, in school and in social settings. And I think for me, if there was one thing that I had control over, it was my success in life. And I think that's really where it kind of stemmed from, was um trying to get that feeling of importance, right? That feeling of importance, that worthiness, that value in the world, and also to like be seen, to be acknowledged. I really, really put emphasis on the importance of being successful, right? And so to me, it was like that was my one mission in life, was to be successful at any cost. And I think really that's where that hard work, go-getter, hustle, grind really came into. But also, like, let's not forget the narrative that's been like fed to us all, right, in North America. And so you combine both of those things, a young girl who's like just craving to be seen and to feel important in the world, right? And then you pair that with a narrative that's been fed to us, spoon fed to us. Well, there you go. You've got like just a fire, right? So I feel like through most of my life, share, it's been chasing that success and grinding and trying to prove my worth in the world. Yeah. And I think like from very young, like knowing that um going back and finishing high school after having my daughter at 17, and then putting myself through college. Like I was the first one in my family to actually graduate from college. That was a huge thing for me, right? And then I just kept going, and when it was more of like climbing the ladder, and I know I've had experience working in corporate settings, but I've also had like half of my professional life would be working for myself, being my own boss as well. So I've been able to see it from two sides. And the things that I've learned is that you get that hustle culture regardless of whatever side that, or whatever path that you're on, whether it's the workspace culture or be your own boss like path. And so when I think about from the workspace culture, I think you just have a lot of more of that hustle culture. You've just got it's like a different type of rat race in a sense. You're working with all different types of people, but then all of a sudden you've got this hierarchy model in place, right? And so you've got all of these people, and I don't want to like people's own inner stuff. But at the end of the day, we're all human. Like I've been on this journey of like, self work and all this stuff, right? And I've learned so much about human psychology and the way that our brains work and our subconscious mind. And so I think it's fair to say that most of us carry a lot of, those inner wounds and those things that we're all working through and working through the ego. And so when you have a whole shit ton of people who are running organizations and are working in organizations, but they're showing up with those own inner traumas or those own inner wounds and things that they haven't quite been able to work through or figured out yet, then you've just got a whole mixture of a whole bunch of like politics and different things all in the mix, right? So that can become that kind of space can become very toxic in some cases, depending on the culture of the workspace, can become lead to burnout and stuff too, because I think that you've got a lot of demands. Like some employees, some people have a lot of demands put on them. And then you've got a lot of people who are people pleasers and they don't know how to say no, and they don't know how to put up, healthy boundaries. And then you've got people who just feel like I have to say yes because this is my job and this is my livelihood too. So let's put that into the mix too, is the fact that when people are in the workspace, this is their livelihood, right? This is what's paying for the roof over their head and food in their fridge. And so there's all of these different elements that you throw in. And what happens is, and what I have seen, and even for myself at times, has been like all of these pressures put on you, and you're spending the majority of your time in at work. And when you have all of these like pressures and all of these demands and all of your time and energy is being invested in this one place, you really don't have much left over to take home with you. You don't have much left over to bring home to your kids. You don't have much left over to bring home to your spouse or to yourself or to your hobbies or your other things that are also just as important, or I would say more important than work itself, right? And so I think there's been a serious epidemic of people that are just unfulfilled, unhappy, just longing for some bit of purpose and inner peace and stillness, right? And just like a break from the noise and the constant demands that are placed on them. And I have to say, like, navigating the workspace, it's been a journey for me too, because since moving to Toronto, I think within like my second year in, I started up in the corporate world again. And it was like the best decision for me. And I'm learning so much because there's things that you can learn in business, right? That you can't learn in the workspace, but there's things in the workspace that you can't learn in business, means employed, like your own boss, right? So I've been learning so much being in the corporate workspace, but I have definitely have had to learn to put healthy boundaries in place. I've had to learn to not bring that like hustle culture into my position as well. And I've had to learn so many different things in like dealing with different types of people and personalities and the demands and balancing with like my kids and at home and all the things. And what I have found is that you don't necessarily have to be at 100 for 8 hours. You can actually be more effective, more productive, less than 8 hours, and get even a better output and better results. And a couple things that I have learned is like you have to fill your own cup first before you go and pour into other people's cups. So if you think of like the workspace, if you think about your job, that is a cup that you are pouring into. So if you are trying to pour into this cup every single day, you better have a full cup of your own first, because you can't pour from an empty cup. So a lot of things that I have done to help keep myself grounded and help me pour into other cups, right? Because let's face it, we've got kids, we've got home, we've got all the things, is making sure that like I set myself up for a good day, making sure that I'm managing my time, making sure that I'm grounding myself in the mornings, making sure that I'm taking care of myself in the mornings. I have that quiet space for myself, and really making sure I'm just like doing the things that fill up my cup. And for everybody, it's different. You'll know what fills up your cup, right? But then when you go into work, when you go into the office, or you go to sit down on work on your business, you are in such a better state of mind and you're in such a better energy to be able to give. And I have seen how doing this and balancing and resting and just living from a place of being present and flowing versus like pushing and constantly like striving, I find that I'm thriving more than ever with having more rest and having more flow, because shit just comes together so much better. Like I can't explain it, but it's just the output that I'm able to give is just so much better than when I'm like pouring from an empty cup. Because when you're constantly on and you're hustling and you're going, your battery is draining and like your cup's draining, and you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't, like, if your phone dies, you can't use the phone, right? And so if we think about ourselves, we're like an energy, and think of it as a battery, right? You got to make sure that you're charging your battery. What about you, Cher? Like, what are some things that you have done when it comes to shifting from the constant doing, and then really like, what are some of the things that have helped you shift into being present and flowing more?
I think a lot of it is just, like you said, being. It's definitely a lot of like meditation, reflection before I started to understand that my life was prioritizing work and success and chasing the dream, you know? And it wasn't so much about money, honestly, for me. It was all about being noticed. It was I need the validation. And I had to let go of all of that. And I think meditation, breath work really helped me release those things. And I started to feel like I could see the world so much differently than I used to. It was almost like I was in a box before, and all I could see was one picture, which was, how do you make it to the top of that mountain? And that was my goal. And I didn't see anything else around me at the time. And so, maybe my kids might have felt a little bit neglected because I would be buried in work, or I would be working nonstop every weekend doing wedding photography. And, that's another reason why I had to give that up, even though the money was good. It's because I knew what I was doing to myself and I knew what I was prioritizing. And if I know myself well enough now, it's that I can't go back to that life, money or no money. It really doesn't motivate me. My motivation comes from doing the things that really fuel me, that impact others, that help others, that feel like I'm actually making a difference in the world, but I want to make a difference in the world on my terms and I want to be in flow with it. I don't want to do it for anyone else other than myself, knowing that I'm doing the right thing. That's it. It's like I want
Having
to be
like
of
an impact.
service, right? But I also want to prioritize my lifestyle. And so for me, it was all about, what do I really want? Asking myself, what is it that you want? And I said, the main word that's always come up
Mhm.
for me is freedom. Freedom to live a life that is fulfilling, filled with joy, filled with memories, family, and giving. giving, right? And so how do I do that? Well, I need to create a life that serves that, that I can provide that, right? And so if I create a life of hustle, that I'm constantly working on these accolades and this external validation, I'm never going to have that life of freedom. So I had to really talk to myself and say, what is it that you want? Well, first step, you need to give up the things that no longer serve that life,
Mm.
that dream life of yours. It's not going to happen. So, giving up that lifestyle, giving up certain habits, giving up beliefs that I had once, giving up different perspectives of life, like all of that happened. And it was a process and it's still a process, but I'm going more in flow right now with the lifestyle that I want. And I already feel like I have that lifestyle. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I wake up, I look at out the window and I'm like, huh, I don't need to go to a 9 to 5 today. I get to sit here. I
Mhm.
get to make my own hours. I get to talk to my best friend. I get to build a business with her. I get to hug my kids every day. I get to spend more time with my kids every day. I don't have to go to a wedding every weekend. I don't have to sit at my computer and edit a million photos that I don't want to do, you know? So it's like, okay, what is your lifestyle? And not everybody has that capability. I understand that.
Mhm.
Not
Right.
everyone is there yet to the point that they want to be. And I'm not trying to sugarcoat like
Yeah.
it's so easy because it's not. It's a process, right? And I think, but it's just about asking yourself the real questions like, what do you
Mhm.
really want for your life? What is a priority for your end goal? What do you see yourself doing that will make you feel truly fulfilled and truly embodying that vision board that maybe you have put in your mind, right? And for me, it's like, okay, I want to be on a beach on like a warm country forever. I've said that to you before. I'm like, I need to get out of this cold. I don't want to live here no more, right? So that's my goal is to live in a country that is warm with my family that can we're we're having a great time, but I'm doing a life where I'm creating purpose. I'm not just sitting around. And yes, there are some days where I say, Sherry, are you just being lazy because you're
Mm.
sitting around? I tell myself, you're not being lazy. You know what you're doing? You're gathering information by being still. And when the time comes for you to create, you're going to have all that you need inside of you to create that big thing. And guess what? You're going to be more productive, more authentic, more inspiring, and yeah,
Yeah.
more productive in the end because you're not pushing. And that's what hustle is. It is pushing for something. It is like following the follows and following the likes and following the awards and following the validation, following the proof, following things that don't really matter, things you're not going to
Yeah.
take with you when you die. You're not going to take the stuff with you. And that's the other thing is the stuff. Lately, that's been coming up for me too. Is like a lot of people hustle because they want the stuff to show, right? They're like, I need the big house. I need the $1 million. I need to show this because that's what success is. The more stuff I have,
Mhm.
the more successful I am. Well, no, newsflash, right? That might be someone's success, like Donald Trump, that's not mine. That's not my idea of success. And I told you what my idea of success is, but now you need to ask yourself the question, what is your idea of success? Because success is not always the $1 million, but maybe it is the $1 million, but for what reason is that $1 million? By that, I mean, money is energy. Where is that money? What is that money doing to fulfill you? What is it doing to, give you the perception that life is beyond money? Because if I have that $1 million, what am I going to do with it? Am I just going to buy a house to show everybody, look how cool I am? Or am I going to use it to create a life that gives back or creates a ripple effect or creates more energy in my life, right? And so I think that's a whole other topic on its own. We can talk about that another time, but I feel it's important to know what it is you really want. If you say, I want to be rich,
I think
why
there's
do you want to be
yeah.
rich, right? If I want to be successful, what does success mean to you? Define what
Yeah,
success
I
means to you.
think that's so true, and I think that everybody it's different too, because some people, if they want the big home, will get the damn big home, but what is your intention behind getting the big home as well, right? Because I was someone too who wanted the $1 million, still want the $1 million, give me all the millions of dollars, actually, I'll take it, but also my intention behind wanting it has changed over the years, right? All of the things. So, not to knock anyone who wants those, we'll say, material things, right? Those are material things that here on this earth. but what is the why behind it, right? So if your intention is to have the $1 million, to be able to go on more trips with your family, to be able to have time freedom, to maybe be free from a 9 to 5, maybe it's to give back more, maybe you want to start a charity or some sort of, nonprofit, whatever it is, but what is the intention? And it's really feeling into the energy of that. And some people do want the big house. Some people want a small, simple house, right? Like I wanted the house, but it wasn't necessarily back years ago. Sure. Yeah. I think I wanted the big house, we'll say mansion, because it was like the feeling of feeling successful, the feeling of like, oh, I've made it. Right. But then that changed over time. And I think for me, wanting the house changed in the sense of creating memories, having a space for my children to be able to run around and play and like have their friends over and do sleepovers and be like, the neighborhood home where everybody comes and hangs out and feels safe, having barbecues, hosting get-togethers. So that changed over time. So the energy behind wanting the house became different, right? So I think it's really important, like Sherry's saying, know why you want the things in your life and don't fall trapped, don't fall prey to the lies that we've been told that if you get this car, you're gonna be successful and you're gonna look like you made it, or go for this, because those are things that we're looking to fill something outside of ourselves that is actually missing with inside of
Agree.
ourselves. So if you really get into more of those deeper questions as to, okay, well, why do I want that? And how is this going to make me feel? And there's been so many times in my journey where I've had to really sit with myself and really come face to face with myself and admit the truth, like, hey, I'm actually chasing these things for external validation. I'm chasing these things to get acknowledgement. But at the end of the day, I needed to give myself those things that I was seeking outside of myself for. Everything that we need, we have already within ourselves, but it's just being able to have the awareness, number one, of what it is and where it's coming from, but then two, asking yourself those deeper questions too. So I think that, needless to say, a lot of these emotional pieces tie in so much with that hustle culture, because it feeds into the subconscious. It feeds into the beliefs that we've developed over our lifetime, and it feeds into the programming. And one thing too that I wanted to also touch on was that some of us are hustling, some of us are grinding because that's all we've ever known. And we do it to feel safe. We do it because it feels safe. It feels safe because this is what we've known. And this is how we've been able to protect ourselves. This is how we've been able to show up. This is how we've been able to win. This is how we've been able to provide. And so when you live from that angle for, a lifetime or however many years, you really do this from a place of like needing that to feel safe, right? And so I remember having to work through some of those things of like, okay, I don't actually have to be hustling and going to feel safe, right? And I think for me, it was like recognizing and having the awareness and then starting to do things like resting, taking a break, going for walks, putting up a little more boundaries around the amount of time that I'm spending on work, working on business and stuff like that. And just reminding myself that it's safe to take a break. It's safe to rest. It's safe to not have to respond to that email right now. It's safe to not have to write down all the things on the list and check it all off by the end of today. It's safe to be able to just rest and just be and enjoy your fucking life, because let's face it, we're not here forever. We're only here for a short amount of time, and so we're not meant to just be working and working and working only to retire, at 60. If we're lucky to get to 60, who knows if we're going to make it to, I don't know if I'm going to make it to 60. So why am I working like a dog
Yeah, I
and
don't know. Exactly.
saving and not enjoying my life now in hopes that I'm going to make it to 60 and then enjoy my life when I'm older and like my body has had its wear and tear? Like, no, I'm here to enjoy. And I believe that we can have it all. I believe that we can have both. I believe that we can have balance in work and business. And we also can rest and play. I believe that we can thrive without constantly striving. I believe that we can feel fulfilled and show up with purpose and impact while working in a 9 to 5 or working in a business. Like I truly do believe that we can have it all, but it does take some intentional work. It does take those small baby steps of just reminding yourself and retraining yourself to believe that yes, you can rest. Yes, you can be still. No, you don't have to hustle constantly. And yes, it's safe to just be.
I love that. And to piggyback on your hustle, on your having the car, having the house kind of thing, I wanted to chime in on that because I feel like because my backstory, some of you might know I lived in India for 4 years of my life and I didn't have all of the luxuries that we have here that people complain about every single day. And I feel like some days I find myself wanting to just wash dishes by hand. I don't even want to use a dishwasher. And I start to believe that I think those things are changing us in a sense, like the things that we get because we work hard to get them, or it's almost like we're using those as like awards. Like that's a thing that we achieved. And at the end of the day, it's gratitude. We need to look at our lives filled with gratitude. And by that I mean if you get the shiny new car, ask yourself why you're getting it. Because chances are, and not chances are, most definitely, you will be on a high for a little while, right? Which we all are when we get a new shiny thing. But what happens is we all have a baseline fulfillment, a line that I've recently studied, which is called hedonic adaptation. We all go down to that level. Again, you don't stay on that high, for long. So what is that car giving you when you're down to that level, right? So ask yourself, what do I want that car to give me when I'm at that baseline? So if you get that house, if you get that car, what is it giving you every single day? That's the question. So when I get up in the morning and I look out my big window and I see the sun coming in and I've got my cup of coffee and I'm sitting there and I'm enjoying that sun come into my house, I'm giving gratitude for the house that I'm in right now. I'm not giving gratitude for the big shiny things in my house that I get to show off on Instagram and my reels and my highlight reel. No, I'm giving gratitude for the space that I'm in, the feeling that I'm in. And every single day that I have this house, I've achieved it because of the feeling it gives me, not because I need to show it off to anyone else or to prove to myself that I did this. Do you know what I mean? Hustle doesn't mean you work for things that you need to prove yourself as worthy, or you need to prove that you achieved it, or you need to prove that you have it or you got it. Hustle mentality is something that, again, we've been conditioned to believe we need to have to get those things. But you can have all the things. Like Whitley just said, you can have all the things you want, right? And you don't need to work hard as you think you do to get them. You just need to connect yourself with what it is you actually want and what it is you actually want to do to be able to have that life, to be able to say, you know what, I'm happy with those things that I already have. And what do I need to let go of? What don't I really need? Like, we make life so complicated.
So
Oh my
true.
God. Like, I just feel like everybody should live in a third world country to understand this, that the people, the boys and little boys and girls on the streets that have no food and they have no slippers are walking around doing the hard work. And guess what? They're freaking laughing and they're enjoying life and they're having a grand old time without things. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do we look at our life and be miserable? That is the question that I have every single day. The more stuff we have, the more miserable we are.
Right? Like, I think you're so right.
Mm,
It's given that gratitude,
yeah.
and I love the part. What did you call it? That baseline. What's the name? Hedonic adapt.
Hedonic adaptation.
Okay. So
Hedonic
I've
adaptation.
been there. We've all been there, right? We've all have gotten the thing, or we've checked off the thing that we've accomplished or achieved, right? And then it's like we're on a high, and then we come back down, and then what happens next? We're on to the next thing. We're on to getting the next thing, right? But
Right. On to the next thing. Yeah.
I believe that you kind of like you hit the nail on the head when you talked about gratitude, right? Because you said you got your house, but there's some mornings when the sun is like pouring in and you're sitting there and you're having your coffee and you're just giving gratitude for your window, you're giving gratitude for your home, you're giving gratitude for the view, for the sun. And you're so right, because it brings more of that good energy in, and more of those things can flow your way, more things that are in alignment with that frequency come into your experience as well. And that's the part where we this is the part where I feel like we have hacked it. And I think more and more people are waking up to the lie of the hustle to get where you need to be and you got to work so hard to get there. This is the part where I feel like we've hacked, and that is that getting on that frequency, first of all, getting really clear on the intention of what it is that you want to be living. You said that earlier. You're like, I've sat down and had to get clear on the life that I wanted to live, the lifestyle, right? Get really clear and let go of the things that no longer were in alignment with that. And then number two, it was like, okay, giving gratitude, feeling into the energy as though you already have it, right? You're already being it. You already have that lifestyle. And then you give the gratitude. There's so much. That's when the universe just is like, oh, okay, awesome. You want to manifest this? Oh, okay, awesome. You're asking for this? Okay, awesome. You want to step into this next level version of you? All right, cool. We're going to arrange some things and we're going to send things your way. Well, guess what? We don't have to. This doesn't just apply when we're, looking at manifesting a new lifestyle. This doesn't just apply when we're manifesting a new thing or a new way of being. This applies to every single second of your life, right? If you show up that way every single second of your life, even when it comes to how you work, whether that's in your business or whether that's in the workplace, I think everything starts with us. So when you master yourself, everything will fall into alignment and into flow. I know this gets really layered and gets really deep, but again, it's because we as humans, we make things so complex, but I promise you, it's actually more simple than it actually sounds. It's really just getting clear on what kind of lifestyle do you want to live? And does it have to be a bougie ass lifestyle? That's not what I'm talking about. It could just be more simplicity, like Sherry was sharing. It could just be more peaceful moments. It could be having a little more freedom and flexibility over your calendar so you have more time with your family and your friends, right? Get clear on that. Start feeling that, embodying that, and start letting go of the things that no longer align with that. No, I'm not saying go quit your job tomorrow. If you're in a toxic workplace and you absolutely hate it and it really isn't serving you, start looking for a new job. Don't give up the one until you get the new job. But just saying, like, there are things that you can do to start to make changes. And I'll say you this, I am 100% an entrepreneur. I don't like working for other people, but at the same time, although I'd much rather be my own boss full time, and that is a plan. But in the meantime, I've had to change my mindset. I've had to change my energy around about what I believe and how I show up working for someone else. And I'll tell you, changing my mindset around it and changing my energy around it has helped so enormously. And also I work for an organization that has a huge mission. Like it has such a good purpose-driven mission. And so I can get with that, right? Sherry, you were talking about how important it is to have an impact. And so there's that piece. And I think that the moment that I started to change my mindset around working for a 9 to 5, even though I know, as a person who, desires to be their own boss full time, I've made it work. And I do more of the things that feels in alignment, and I tailor and shift my mindset around the things that I may not necessarily have full control over temporarily, but I shift it in a way so that I put myself back in an empowered state. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah. I love that. I love this conversation. I think that we can go on for more hours, but I think we're going to end this episode here
There's
because
so much.
it's a lot
So
to
much.
unpack. And we know we've gone on, about materials versus hustle. And then there's a lot of like deeper stuff in this episode, which I think a lot of people
Mhm.
can tie it all in together because there is a spirituality and a work life balance kind of feeling to this episode. So it's not all about, what is hustle culture? It is like, how do you get away from the belief that hustle culture is the only way? And so I think that Willie and I both hope that you guys took something really great around this topic and you're more aware of when you're going through life with gratitude and understanding what is priority for you in your life and how you choose to move forward with, work life balance and living in fulfillment and being happy and prioritizing the things that matter the most to you, but especially prioritizing you and filling your cup up first. So thank you for listening in on this episode.
And we're sending so much love from Whitley and Sherry to you. All right. All right. Blooper, blooper.
That's the worst outro. All right, guys. We'll see you guys next time.